Extinction is not unusual. It is the normal outcome of life in this universe. More than 99% of species that have ever lived are gone, and eventually every intelligent species must confront a question that sounds almost impossible. How do you survive a universe that eventually kills everything? Let's talk about it. For most of Earth's history, survival meant something simple: food, shelter, protection from predators, cooperation with others. But once a species becomes intelligent enough, survival changes scale. It stops being local, it becomes planetary. We can already see the threats: asteroid impacts, climate collapse, synthetic pathogens, nuclear war, ecological destabilization. These are not philosophical problems, they are engineering problems. Even if humanity manages to avoid them all, another limit waits further out. Our planet will not remain habitable forever. In about 1 billion years, the sun will grow brighter, oceans will evaporate, the biosphere will collapse. This is not speculation, it's stellar physics. Eventually, Earth stops being habitable. And when that happens, the problem of survival changes again. It stops being about protecting civilizations, becomes about preserving intelligence itself. An intelligent species facing extinction has only a few options. It can migrate to other planets. It can build artificial habitats. It can spread across its solar system. Eventually, it might even spread between stars. All of this buys time, but it does not eliminate vulnerability. Because every physical structure remains exposed to the same forces that erased the species before us: radiation, energy loss, orbital instability, stellar evolution, and time. Expanding across space multiplies territory. It does not remove fragility. At some point, any civilization that survives long enough will confront an uncomfortable realization: the problem is not location. The problem is dependence on physical environments that inevitably fail. That realization forces a new question. What if survival no longer requires living inside natural worlds at all? We are already moving in that direction. Human experience is increasingly converted into information. Memories become data, language becomes code, behavior becomes algorithms. If consciousness is something that emerges from patterns of interaction, something systems do rather than something matter simply contains, then preserving that pattern becomes a programming problem, not a biological one. Once environments themselves can be simulated, something profound happens. Experience no longer depends on oceans, atmospheres, or planetary surfaces. It depends on maintained structure. It depends on information. At that point, simulation stops being entertainment. It becomes insulation. Inside a simulated environment, time is no longer tied to planetary motion or stellar lifetimes. Time becomes the ordering of events, a sequence of states. A system that feels like centuries from the inside might require only moments of external time to run. Civilizations could rise and fall inside environments insulated from cosmic hazards. Risk does not disappear, but it becomes controllable. Instead of existing inside a universe that occasionally erases life without warning, intelligence could exist inside environments designed to remain stable. If extinction pressure continues long enough, this path becomes difficult to ignore. It becomes the logical extension of survival. And if intelligent species eventually build such environments to preserve themselves, what would those worlds look like? They would not waste energy simulating unnecessary complexity. They would be efficient, stable, structured. Reality inside them would likely be discrete rather than perfectly continuous. Information would be carefully preserved, nothing fundamental would simply vanish. The rules governing such a world would favor coherence over chaos, not because elegance is beautiful, but because elegance is what survives under constraint. When you look at our universe through that lens, certain features become interesting. Reality appears quantized. Information cannot be fundamentally destroyed. Time behaves less like a flowing river and more like a structured dimension. Observation affects outcomes in strange ways. These are not proofs of anything. They are simply patterns consistent with what a highly constrained system might look like. But this is not an argument that we are living in a simulation. The point is simpler than that. If intelligent species refuse extinction, and if consciousness can exist as information, then environments designed for stability may eventually replace natural ones. Not because they are pleasant, but because they are survivable. And that leads to a final unsettling possibility. Not that someone built our world for entertainment. Not that we are characters in a story, something quieter. What if environments like the one we inhabit are exactly the kind of worlds intelligent species eventually construct when survival is on the line? Worlds harsh enough to produce intelligence, but stable enough to sustain it. Worlds where cosmic catastrophe is replaced with structured challenge. Worlds where consciousness can continue long after natural planets become uninhabitable. If that were true, we would not be illusions, we would be continuations. A way for intelligence to remain part of the universe, even when natural worlds fail. Because even if civilizations escape their planets, even if they spread across the stars, eventually every physical universe faces the same problems. Stars burn out, energy disperses, entropy wins, and when the final environments capable of supporting life disappear, intelligence will face its last question. Not how to travel farther, but how to exist without depending on a dying universe at all. And if the answer to that question is simulation, then one final possibility remains. Somewhere, perhaps long after the last natural civilization vanished, a system may still be running, quietly preserving experience, preserving memory, preserving minds. And if that possibility feels unsettling, it may be because the logic that leads there is difficult to escape. If extinction is the rule of physical reality, then survival may eventually require stepping outside. One unsettling thought follows. The first alien civilization we discover may not be biological at all. It might not be walking on the surface of a planet. It might be underground, inside a bunker, a system running quietly beneath a dead world. Not a species that survived its planet, but a species that survived its universe. A civilization that converted itself into information and built a machine designed to keep the experience running. And if we ever find something like that, a silent server beneath alien soil still preserving minds long after the world above it died, we may realize something uncomfortable. Not that they escaped extinction, but that they solved it. And if that solution exists anywhere in the universe, then eventually every intelligent species will face the same choice. Survive the universe, or survive outside of it. Thank you.